In this video, I want to show you how to upgrade your shots from this to this. And this is not a color grading tutorial as such, but for shots where you weren't able to use the lighting that you wanted, or if you weren't able to use something like a reflector, especially when shooting outside, this is an amazing technique. So let's make your shots look more dynamic, more three-dimensional, and more as if you've used lighting when actually you haven't. This video is timestamped, so do skip to the bits you like. Any comments, likes, subscribes really help me out a great deal, so please do that. And I also have a Patreon for anyone who wants to further support the channel, and then with that I give gear away to my backers, so that's really worth it. Details below. Just to say, this is not mimicking the relighting tool that you can get in DaVinci Resolve, as amazing as that is. For me, Final Cut is still superior in its sort of speed and efficiency, and that's what's important to me. Lastly, this technique works best if you're using footage that was shot in either RAW or log format of some kind. If not, if it's just a linear type, it's harder to kind of manipulate the footage to look how you want it to. So I've got this shot at the moment, which I shot for an advert, which looks pretty good, but ideally could have done with a touch of lighting at the time, or maybe a reflector or something like that being used on camera right, I would say, to bring up the exposure of our subject. The first thing I'm going to do is just duplicate the clips and then place it straight on top of the other one. And I'm also going to remove the audio track completely and just delete it from the second one, just because I don't want to hinder performance in any way, and just having more audio is just more for it to deal with. Next, with the top layer, I'm going to track our subject, and I'm just going to use the Apple tracking for this, but you could use a third-party one if you wanted to, something like Motion VFX. Mroto AI will work just as well. You can see I'm doing lots of control points, especially around our subject's hair. I'm giving positive points and on our subject, and negative points all around her, just to give the tracking as much information as possible. Okay, and now tracking it back and forth, Apple actually does a really good job of this with the magnetic mask. It's come a long way and it's pretty brilliant. That's now done a really nice job. I'm really happy with that. I'm not going to do any kind of tweaks to it. The first thing I want to tackle now is the background, because it's not looking the way that I had hoped at the time. It's easy to grade it, but obviously if we can do it separately from the subject, that gives us way more control. I filmed this in December, and ideally I would have filmed it in September, October, when we had more attractive, orangey, yellow, green colours in the trees. I didn't get that, but I can do something about that now. I'm just going to make a few adjustments here, and you can see I've done just a few tweaks to control the highlights. I've done a few colour adjustments, and it's made a huge difference. Next, I want to focus on grading our subject, and it's good that we can do it separately. That way we can really make it look like there was something to bring up the exposure of her face whilst we were filming. So by tweaking the exposure and the contrast a little bit, it has a gigantic impact on our subject's exposure. The other thing I want to do is really just fine-tune the colour, her skin tones. And the way that I like to do this is I like to use Eric Len's skin tone plugin. It's absolutely brilliant. You just drop it on. It's a lookup table. You drop it on, and the more of that kind of magenta-y purple, pinky purple that you see, the better, the more accurate the skin tone. So just using that now, and I'm just going to do some small tweaks, get as much of the pinky colour that I can see, and there we go, and then switch it off, and you can see really perfect skin tones colour there. If this plugin is of interest, you can get a discount by using my code. Use the code HARV, and it's something I use on every single grade. Now I just drop it right at the end so I can see how my skin tones are looking. Highly recommended. One thing I have to really stress on this is to check the feathering of the mask, and this is really going to make the biggest difference. It's going to be the difference of selling the effect or it ruining it, basically. So we can see here, if I expand the feather, it looks almost like our subject has a halo, and that's the last thing we want. That just looks really fake. So I'm actually going to have a bit of a minus feather, because that to me looks more natural. It'll go for -15, and to me that looks good. There we go, and I think this is now looking really good, and it's definitely walking the line of wow, that looks great, and and too extreme. It's not quite there, but it does look really quite punchy. I'm just going to compound clip them back together, and that's just for a workflow side of things. I just like to have things all as neat as possible whilst editing. Next, I want to just add a couple of effects just to kind of sell the effect, and I'm going to add a little bit of film grain, and for this I like Motion VFX, the M film look grain. That looks good to me. Let's just add a touch of that, and then I'm just going to add a little bit of a vignette, and these are just optional. You can consider this just a placeholder for whatever effects you like, and the point is that we're dropping it over everything, so it affects both layers and they don't look kind of just disjointed. It kind of joins them back together from a visual point of view. The options are kind of limitless with this. You could do something like add extra blur to the background to kind of give the illusion that you were using an even wider aperture on your lens. And if you were to, the very best defocus or blur effect that I found is actually from Dylan Bates' FCP Bro, and it's called the defocus plugin here, and it goes from a very natural sort of out of focus area looking thing to, if you want it to be, really very extreme. This can be found within his Motion Tools bundle, and I highly recommend it. It's not expensive, but it's well worth it. Of course, that is linked if you want to find out more. And that's the shot. I'm pretty happy with that. It's a fairly simple technique, but man, does it work. So now let's boil all of those tips down into a espresso shot of tips to take away. The aim here is to reclaim dynamic range from your shots. RAW or log formats are preferable here. Linear formats just won't have the same flexibility. When tracking, use lots of positive and negative points to give plenty of information to the tracking system. Be really careful with the feathering, as this can make or break the illusion. Also be really careful with the grading, because it can quickly look like a little too HDR and cheesy. I really recommend Eric Lens's skin tone plugin to take the guesswork out of the look of your subject layer. Compound clip the layers back together to keep your workflow slick. Importantly, add effects to both clips to further sell the look, such as a vignette or film grain, flaring, anything like that. I actually use this effect all the time, and it's good that no one's picked up on it, but I do. Any shot where I'm showing a product to the camera, especially in my vertical videos, it's an amazing trick to enhance things and draw attention to it. Anyway, that's it for now. I have loved making this video for you. I hope you found it interesting and helpful, but I want to know, do you use a technique that's similar to this? If so, please share your technique. But that's it. You know, I'm curious. I will see you in the comments. I've made hundreds of videos on this channel, of which the algorithm thinks this video is the best one for you next. And you know what? It's right. You will love it, I guarantee. And you can subscribe here. I'll see you next time.